of you watching are probably like, what is she thinking? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Molly, and in today's video I'm going to be ranking all of Nine Inch Nails' albums and EPs that they released. And I wanted to do this video for a couple of reasons. Number one is I just really like Nine Inch Nails. I like their music. Reason number two is they have a lot of projects under their belt that are all very different and unique, and I thought it would be really interesting to rank them and see where they fall for me personally. Now obviously all of the opinions in this video and the rankings are totally subjective. It's my own opinion. There's probably going to be a lot of you that disagree with my ranking, and that's totally okay. So anyway, let's get started with the ranking. I'm just going to go through and rank these in order of when they were released. So that means our first ranking is going to be Pretty Hate Machine, their first album ever released by Nine Inch Nails, and in my opinion this album is just awesome to listen to. This album was released in 1989, and I think every single song on it could play on the radio today and it would just sound amazing still. So needless to say, this album is filled with bangers. It's so good. It's, for me, A+. Oh yeah, and before I get any further into this, I should probably take you all through the ratings real fast. A+ is absolutely fantastic. I can't really fault this album for anything. A is really, really, really good. I could maybe nitpick like one or two tiny little things, but overall just fantastic still. B is a solid album. Enjoy listening to it. I probably would skip a couple of songs personally, but pretty solid. C is just kind of on the low end for me personally, not an album that I find myself listening to all that often. And then D is just not my personal favorite. By no means a bad project. I don't think they have released anything that I would qualify as absolutely awful, but just for me personally, not one that I listen to. So now that I've explained all those rankings, we can continue on. So the second project that Nine Inch Nails released was their Broken EP, and I will be completely honest, and I know this is not popular opinion, but for me, I just never find myself listening to this EP. For me, this one actually would be D. I know. Shoot me now. I don't ever find myself listening to this EP or any of the songs on it. It's not bad, it's just, for whatever reason, it's one of those projects of theirs that I just never gravitate toward. So for me, it does fall into the D category. Alright, and then the third project that Nine Inch Nails did is the Downward Spiral. I feel like this is the album that everyone raves about. I know it was lauded for all kinds of stuff when it was released. Now I will say, as a conceptual album, this one's great. It really does work. Listening to it from beginning to end, it's just a fantastic album. However, for me personally, there are some skips on this album. I think the opening track, Mr. Self-Destruct, is phenomenal. As the opening song to this album, it's just like a punch in the face. Mr. Self-Destruct is the first song, Hurt as the last song. It works so well as a conceptual album. With that being said though, there are some skips on this one for me, so I will be putting it in the B category today. Again, this is my opinion. Probably a lot of you will disagree with me, and that is okay. That is what I love about music. But this album for me, conceptually fantastic. It just has some songs that I don't listen to that often. I don't find myself drawn to them. However, Mr. Self-Destruct and Ruiner and A Warm Place, those are probably my top 3 songs on this album. They're fantastic. And then the fourth project by Nine Inch Nails is their studio album, The Fragile. I cannot say enough good things about this album. It is my favorite album from Nine Inch Nails, hands down. It is very long. It's a 2-sided album, so there's a lot of tracks on it, but it never gets old. This one for me is an absolute A+. It even beats Pretty Hate Machine. So I would put that number 1. Some of my favorite tracks from The Fragile would have to be The Frail, Into the Wretched. Phenomenal. So good. The Great Below, I get chills every time I listen to it. There's like a middle part of it where it gets so intense in a really subdued way. Just overall a great album. I can't really say enough good things about it. Next up is their album With Teeth. And this one for me, I didn't think it was a favorite album of mine until I re-listened to it recently. And it's actually a pretty good album. I feel like it's one of their more, you could just say like classic rock albums. A lot of their other ones are more experimental or more dark, loud, gritty, industrial. But I feel like With Teeth, if you're just getting into Nine Inch Nails, it's kind of a good, like, just solid rock album to listen to. I think for me, With Teeth is probably, this one's hard. This one's between A and B for me. I feel like as an album to listen to this from beginning to end, it might be A for me. I'm gonna put it in A. There are a few songs on it that aren't my favorite, but as an album, I think it works. I think it's a really good project. My favorite 3 tracks from this album would be probably the closing one, Right Where It Belongs, Only, and Every Day Is Exactly the Same. I think those are my top 3. But overall, solid album, definitely one I enjoy listening to. The 6th project from Nine Inch Nails is their studio album Year Zero. This album is so hard for me to figure out. In listening through to it from beginning to end, it's filled with tracks that I either absolutely love, like some of my favorite songs from Nine Inch Nails, and some that I just cannot get into. So I just don't know where to rank it. For me, With Teeth and Year Zero are just about dead even. As an album to listen through beginning to end, I think With Teeth I slightly prefer, but Year Zero is really close. I think for me personally, I am gonna put it in A after With Teeth, I think. I would say from this album, I really like The Great Destroyer, and my favorite song on this album is Me, I'm Not. If you listen to that song, you cannot tell me that Nine Inch Nails is industrial rock. I don't think that's even a rock song. I don't know what it is, but it kind of works. I think why I like Year Zero is it has a very interesting sound. It almost transcends rock. I don't even think you could say Nine Inch Nails is a rock band because they have projects like Year Zero that are just so out there. I don't know why. I have a soft spot for this album. I just think it's really experimental. It's really cool. Next up we have their Ghosts 1 through 4 album. I've listened through beginning to end to this album one time, and there are some songs on it that I do enjoy. It's not an album I find myself going back to, however. I feel like it's a hodgepodge collection of instrumental tracks that they made. For me, they just don't really fit together in like a real cohesive album. There's some good tracks on here, but I think for me it's a D. I'd put it just above Broken. By no means a bad album though. There's some great like atmospheric instrumental tracks on there, but it's just not one I find myself going back to often. Next up we have The Slip. I actually really enjoy this album. I think it's a solid listen to beginning to end. It works, I think, pretty well as an album. One of my favorite Nine Inch Nails songs actually is Corona Radiata. That song is fantastic, and it's on this album. I think for me this album would be a B. It's not quite an A. It's not one I go back to a ton, but there are some tracks on it that I really, really like. I think for me this would be a B, and I would put it underneath The Downward Spiral. So next up we have Hesitation Marks, and this album I find it to be a little bit long-winded. There's definitely some amazing tracks on here. I think Copy Ova is probably my favorite. I also really like All Time Low. So there's definitely some gems to be had on this album. I think for me though, I think I'd put this in C. I was almost going to put it in B right underneath The Slip, but I just as an album, I find it a little bit just not tied together enough, a little bit all over the place. So I think I'm going to put it in C for that reason. Next up we have the Not the Actual Events EP that they released, and this one I've listened to it a couple of times and I don't know what it is. It's just not one that I ever find myself going back to listen to. I think just for my personal taste I'm going to put this in C, and I will put it right underneath Hesitation Marks. Oh, look at that, we have 2 in each category. How interesting. Alright, so next up we have their Add Violence EP. This is when things are going to get a little bit controversial, if they haven't already with my ranking of the Downward Spiral. But I know this EP came out and it wasn't overwhelmingly received by critics or fans, but for me, I love this EP. I think it's so good. I love this very cinematic, dark, atmospheric sound that this EP has. And for me, I don't know if I'd put this in A+ range, but for me this is a solid A. I would put it third. I know, I'm breaking boundaries here. By far my favorite song off of this EP is This Isn't the Place, but Less Than is amazing, and I love the background world. It's like a 11+ minute track. The second half of the song is just the same loop over and over and over, and I oddly enjoy it. So we are down to the final 3 left to rank. So next up is going to be their studio album, Bad Witch, which in my opinion is more like a EP, but this album is good. It's almost like if you took some sort of super cool car chase sequence in an action movie and you threw some saxophone in there. It's jazzy, it's atmospheric. Trent Reznor's vocals in this album are really interesting, especially the track God Break Down the Door. It's just cool. It's a really interesting listen to. And for me, this is an A. I would put it above With Teeth, but underneath Add Violence. All of you watching are probably like, what is she thinking? What can I say? My taste in music is interesting. And the last 2 we have to rank are their 2 albums that came out last year in 2020. So we have Ghosts 5 Together and Ghosts 6 Locusts. That's hard to say. I'm kind of going to rank these together because they were kind of released as like a pair. Both of these albums are good. They're not ones I really find myself drawn to. I think I prefer Ghosts 5 Together. I would probably put them underneath Hesitation Marks, but above Not the Actual Events, I think. Probably like that. So there you have it. That is my final ranking of all of Nine Inch Nails albums and EPs that they've released. This ranking will probably change in about a week because my taste in music constantly changes. So an album that I ranked lower, I might absolutely love in a week or a month from now. But my final ranking, so A+, Absolute Perfection, we have The Fragile and Pretty Hate Machine. An A, so close to perfection, we have their Add Violence EP, Bad Witch, With Teeth, and Year Zero. Their B albums, so ones that are solid, maybe there's a couple tracks I skipped though. We have The Downward Spiral and The Slip. Their C albums, which are ones that are kind of fade into the background a little bit. I don't dislike them, they're just not ones I listen to a ton of tracks from. We have Hesitation Marks, Ghosts 5 Together, Ghosts 6 Locusts, and They're Not the Actual Events EP. And then in the D category, which are just albums that are not personal favorites of mine, we have Ghosts 1 through 4 and their Broken EP. Alright, so that is going to do it for my Nine Inch Nails album ranking and kind of review, but I just love Nine Inch Nails. I think they're a fantastic band that have a great collection of projects that are all very different and have their own unique sound, but ultimately all of their albums I think are really good in their own way. This is just my own personal ranking. Let me know in the comments what your top 3, let's say, Nine Inch Nails albums are. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really enjoyed filming this video. Stay tuned for more fun stuff to come, and I will see you all next time.